This is the Water Quality Association podcast.
Super important, I think, that I went. The thing that it might have changed in my mind is that I think we've been working hard on this concept of our strategic plan and being more professional and how we present ourselves. But I want to make sure now, I think, as we continue that conversation, that we don't lose sight of our history and where we've been and the work that these independent dealers do.
That's WQA President Mike Mitchell from an earlier episode, one of the highlights from 2025. And welcome to the podcast from the Water Quality Association, the leading voice of the residential, commercial, and industrial water treatment community. I'm Wes Bleed. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show. And be sure to catch our podcasts on YouTube. In this episode of the WQA Podcast, we are going to rewind the tape and look back at some of the highlights from 2025. We'll hear thoughts and reflections from the Mid-Year Leadership Conference, the Consumer Insights Report, the Manufacturers Survey, WQA CEO Pauli Undesser's TEDx Folsom speech. We'll hear about the science of salt and water treatment, innovation involving a high school student, and water treatment for agriculture. It's all coming up on the Water Quality Association podcast. First up in the WQA Rewind, how water treatment plays an important role in agriculture with Mike Heatwall. Well, tell us how you got started with agriculture clients and just the kind of the scope of the work you've done over the years.
So it helps to be born in an agriculture area. I'm from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, Rockingham County. We are the number one ag county in the state of Virginia. Born and raised on a dairy and poultry farm. So I grew up in agriculture, went through 4-H, FFA, all those things, got my American Farmer degree, and, always thought I wanted to go into production agriculture. Tried it several times, and, life has a way of happening, and it just didn't work out. But I started out my career, working for a farm co-op after college, then selling farm equipment directly to farmers. And then I ended up getting in the plumbing industry through some friends. And through that, it's where I got involved in water treatment and water quality. And being heavily involved with the plumbing, we had so many dairy farms and poultry farms in our area. So we were supplying a lot of equipment to those folks. And then the issue, of course, water quality would come up, and, equipment would foul out just with the normal things that we think of, hardness, iron, those normal contaminants. So I started working with farmers and integrators in the industry, as well as equipment folks, to help come up with solutions so their equipment would work better. And then as we progressed, especially on the poultry side, I always thought it was kind of funny that the one item they monitor as a grower is the water intake of chickens and turkeys. And they know down to the 100 head how much water should be consumed by healthy birds. And so they chart that every day, and it's a nice little steady linear curve. And when the birds fall off of water consumption, they knew something was wrong. And they would always look at, air quality, feed quality, did they get a disease, something like that. Water was always the last thing they looked at. And yet next to feed, it was the biggest component that went inside the animal. And so we started working with some integrators, companies like Cargill and Purdue, and some names that folks probably recognize, and trying to analyze, maybe it wasn't those other factors. Maybe water quality had a lot to do with it. And so working with them out in the trenches in the field helped to analyze problems and situations. I kind of developed a little reputation in the area. And so that's how I got into it. And then on the dairy side, water, for cows milking, an average dairy cow would drink 65, 70 gallons of water a day. And if they're not consuming water, they're not producing milk. And so, I got heavily involved in that. And then we even got into reproductive issues due to water quality. And it just kind of all grew from that. It's how over time it got bigger and bigger for us.
So let's go back. Was it the farmer that was discovering that the water quality might be suspect, or were you suggesting that there might be reason to take a look at the water for whatever the problems were that you were trying to uncover and then obviously solve?
Yeah, some of both. I had the opportunity to get in front of a lot of the farmers with our plumbing side of the business. And so I could start having those discussions, and, they would look at equipment, and then, I got to know people in the equipment business. And so it was kind of a combined thing. It was people were looking for answers, didn't always know where to go. And I would suggest, hey, maybe it is the water quality. And then, they'd go, hey, we haven't tried that. We've looked at everything else. And then as time went on, we developed our own state certified lab, so I could do a lot more extensive testing, put some of my theories to test. And, so we put some systems together for some farms and had some tremendous successes, especially on the poultry side. A farmer might send a flock to market, and back then it was anywhere from 9 to 12 weeks. Now it's 5 or 6 weeks that they send birds to market, and they could pay for the entire system and the gains of production in just one flock.
Next up, WQA President Mike Mitchell talked with WQA Susan Keaton at the Mid-Year Leadership Conference, picking up the conversation here about Mike attending the Texas Water Quality Convention in the summer.
But it was super to see that, that aspect of the business and meet those people that are day-to-day going door to door, really working with consumers to help them better understand their waters. It's something that I don't normally get to see because we're more in the retail space, and I've been more on the national stage, but super important, I think, that I went. The thing that it might have changed in my mind is that I think we've been working hard on this concept of our strategic plan and being more professional and how we present ourselves. But I want to make sure now, I think, as we continue that conversation, that we don't lose sight of our history and where we've been and the work that these independent dealers do.
Oh, interesting. And we probably should stop a little bit and let you explain what you do when you're not being WQA president. So
so my job, I'm more on the technical side. Okay. So I'm currently a vice president. My title is an engineering fellow at a company called Helena Troy. Helena Troy is publicly traded. We do roughly $2 billion in sales, but it's everything from shampoos, conditioners, curling irons, air purifiers, humidifiers, but also we own the Pure water filtration business. Okay. And Pure is mainly a retail business. And so we sell products into Targets, Walmarts, and places like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've been on the ground in places like Flint, Michigan, and places like that, helping people get their home water set up.
Yeah, I kind of gotten drawn into that, and it's super important. I think, as I've spoken probably before, water is really important. It kind of runs the gamut. There's bottled water, there's taste and odor, there's mineral water, there's high pH alkalinity and all the other things. But there are people that are really having trouble in communities with lead. And lead's been around for decades. I was listening to a municipal person at EWQA last week, and he got up and talked, and it was good to have him come in and kind of talk about how they do filtration and how the city of that area has great water, never has a problem. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking every city that I've been in that has a lead problem has said the same thing.
Yeah,
they've all said we do corrosion control, we really don't have a lead problem, and they normally don't until they do.
Yeah.
And so I understand the message that he's trying to do, but I think it's important that we continue this conversation with our partners at AWWA and these municipalities. And I understand the problems they have from an economic standpoint. They don't always have the resources. But if we're not realistic about the problems that we face, it's going to be much harder to solve.
This is Rewind 2025, and next we hear from WQA Vice President Greg Reinicke concerning the new Consumer Insights Report. You mentioned contaminants. That's interesting, too. I think the report seems to show, if you look at the graph, and I may have misread this, but it seems to show that general awareness, unaided awareness, seems to have gone down from the last one. Just a few ticks. It's not huge. But it's interesting because on the one hand, there is more information out there, more growing awareness, as we've talked about. And on the other hand, if that's the case, if this report is accurate, it seems as though not as much unaided awareness was there in this report. What do you think?
Yeah, I found that interesting as well, and it reminded me of a conversation that Mike Mitchell and I had a few years ago at one of the WQA conventions, talking about, I think it was the 2021 survey. And the unaided awareness really is the key. And when we look at what people are thinking about, people kind of sort of know something's up with their water, and they get something in the news, something topical, and it sparks interest, but then it fizzles, and they're more interested in more local things, things that are going on that affect their lives. They don't necessarily quite understand what's going on with the potential health risks that are out there. You know, when PFAS hit the world stage and everybody got all excited about PFAS and the lawyers went crazy suing everybody about PFAS, it was kind of interesting speculating about what the average American or average Western consumer would think. And it turned out that we were largely correct in that they said, oh, that's interesting. Sounds like it's somebody else's problem. I'm not going to worry about it. And so unaided awareness, people go, I don't know. I don't know what I'm concerned about. But then when you have a conversation and you say, are you interested in protecting your family from lead, for example? You go, well, yeah, sure, but there's no lead in my water. And you go, how do you know? Now it's a different conversation. And I think that, again, harkens to the value of that trusted local professional who is going to adhere to that WQA code of ethics and work with that consumer, that homeowner, that mom, that dad, who's just trying to give their kids clean, safe, delicious water, but not go crazy and get all Howard Hughes about it and filter the water into oblivion. And you want to find that balance of clean enough to be healthy and dirty enough to be affordable.
We touched base earlier in the year with Sean Coran and Sam Cargie on a new manufacturer survey. Here's a portion of that conversation. And then as well, CapEx spending. It seems to be either increasing or holding steady to the tune of 87% of companies on the positive side. Sean, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that CapEx number is fantastic. The CapEx spend message is crystal clear in my mind. Even in this watchful environment, we know we can't stand still. I mean, I think that's an excellent number there, and I see it. I mean, I see it throughout the industry. If it's with M&A or with just new production facilities or people, designing and manufacturing more products, it's pretty obvious that CapEx is strong.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I wanted to get Sam's thoughts on this too. Sam, how do you see that playing out? Is it in innovation? Is it looking for new product lines? Is it looking for, as Sean reflected, perhaps expansion?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen a lot of company acquisitions over the last handful of years, and I think that will continue to accelerate by many people out there. That's probably the most obvious version of capital deployment. The other area I'm seeing a lot, not only from within our company, but as well as just others out there in our supply chain, things like that, the idea that labor is getting more and more and more challenging. And the ability to create products, innovative products that rely on less labor so that our dealers and our folks out there can do more installations more quickly. Innovation isn't necessarily about radical new technology, but it's about products that our channel can use and that they can do more so we can mutually grow together. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of that innovation and a lot of that CapEx being deployed out there right now.
WQA CEO Pauli Undesser had a unique opportunity in 2025 to present a speech at the TEDx Folsom Forum. She talked about water quality. So to go back again to the logistics and so forth, you prepared for this how? What did you do? How did you come up with just what it was that you wanted to say and then how that you wanted to say it?
So the preparation of how to do the presentation, I did training last year through a TEDx moderator. And so some of the stylistic pieces, I did actual coaching, and I had a cohort over a week that I did some really intensive training through that. But also through this process, TEDx Folsom had 10 different coaches that were at our disposal, 4 of them specifically that we met every week over about a 2 to 3 month period. And we had coaching through them that we worked on our presentations over that time. And so it was intense to be able to go through this process and really sharpen and refine because you really have to get dialed into that message. So I had a pitch that was accepted, but that pitch was certainly dialed in as our final barrier pitch, which we've had that for WQA for decades, right? We've talked about final barrier and the 1% that our industry focuses on, but to convert that into dumb water versus smart water and have that more as a consumer-focused message was what we focused on over the last 2 to 3 months. And how is that something that's so provocative and bring it home into stories and something that's relatable and get that done in less than 15 minutes. That was the challenge that we worked on over 2 to 3 months.
So you mentioned the presentation occurred live on stage. Obviously, the live audience is there, and that gives you the energy and so forth. But now it's videotaped, and is it available now? Are we able to see it?
It is live today, so it's super exciting. They don't tell us or give us a heads up when it exactly goes live. So it could have been weeks to months. So I'm excited to know that it is live. We can access it. And we're looking forward to everybody viewing it, hopefully liking it, commenting on it, giving feedback on it, but also sharing it out there with others so that it's not just the water industry that's looking at it, but we're really looking forward to the message getting outside of the water industry as well.
And I'd like to maybe play a segment of it if we can fit it in here during the conversation. But what would you like to highlight? What would you say was a segment or a portion of the talk that was kind of the signature piece of your message?
The signature piece is the end portion where it really goes into the call to action, where it talks about the fight for water and that water is everyone's fight.
And I know everyone says, gosh, I have so much on my plate. How do I add one more thing? Change is not easy. But the big thing is, change is already here. Change is in the people. 28 of 50 states already allow smart water solutions for regulatory compliance. 43 million that are on private wells, like myself, already have smart water solutions that are our only option for having water treatment in our homes. If you are camping, you're a hiker, or you're off-roader, and you're using water treatment, you're already in the fight for water. If you have a water treatment device in your home today, you're already in the fight for water. The fight has already begun. What we need to do is amplify the fight for water.
We hope you're enjoying Rewind 2025, highlights from the past year. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show. What does salt have to do with water quality? Well, that was the focus of an earlier episode with Matt Muthardt of Morton Salt. So walk us through the science, Matt, of what happens with salt and the softening process.
Yeah, so I'll take this opportunity to say something too, is that a lot of people think that salt is what's softening the water, and that's not quite true. So your water softener has what we call ion exchange resin in it, and that's what's taking out your calcium, magnesium, your hardest ions, and it'll plate onto that resin, and then you have your soft water coming out. And then what salt does is we use that to make brine, which is washed through that resin to recharge it, and that brings it back to life so that it can take out more of those hardness ions. So that's where salt plays its role. So it's not softening the water itself directly, but inadvertently.
Right. And how long typically will that salt that's been put into the softener, into the tank, how long will that salt last in doing its job?
Yeah, so that's a lot of that depends on how hard your water is and how much you're putting through your water softener, right? So the faster you exhaust that resin with hard water, so if you have harder water, it's going to go faster. If you have less hard water, it's going to go a lot slower. That's going to dictate how often you have to recharge it, and that's when you're going to be using your salt, right? So, typical regeneration takes anywhere from, maybe around 10 or so pounds of salt. But again, it all depends on your water softener and how it's set up. There's a huge range there, but your every regeneration, every few days, you'll be using, tens of pounds of salt, maybe. So again, kind of depends on your water quality and how often you need to regenerate.
Right. Okay. And how does one know if the salt is actually doing its job?
Yeah, so one of the first indicators is going to be you're going to get hardness breakthrough from your water softener, right? So you're going to see it in your house. So you're going to get spots on your dishes that build up on your shower head, or if you have iron, you're going to get staining, right? So that means the hardness has broken through that resin, which means the resin's exhausted, and your water softener should be set up that it should have recharged. And then if it did do a recharge and you still have that hardness breakthrough, it means that it didn't take, right? So either you're out of salt, or maybe you had a bridging problem or something, another challenge to where you're not getting the brine to go through to regenerate the resin, and it's not doing its job. So that would be your first indicator. A lot of people at that point would probably do a manual recharge. So the water softener, triggered and is doing a regeneration. And that you still continue to have hardness breakthrough, there's another problem, right?
Innovation is exciting, especially when young people are involved. We look back at our conversation with Rory Sherman with the Clean Water Guys and high schooler Jackson Gillette. What was the tool that you had in mind and eventually came up with, and the need that it solves?
Yeah, it was a tool for releasing tubing off of quick connect fittings. So quick connect fittings, you have to have your fingers around them to be able to release a cowlet to disconnect the tubing, regardless of the size. And being in the industry 40 plus years, I dealt with that throughout the time as that new technology came into the market, and it was a struggle. And I'm thinking, wow, we need to have something to connect onto here and to do this. And the idea was always there. It just never went anywhere. That's why I wish Jackson was 34 instead of 14 when we first talked. We probably could have done this a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously, you had looked for a solution and nothing was out there, right?
There was some options out there. They just weren't very user friendly. They helped assist in a little way, but they weren't that easy. And I said, we got to make something easier. And I was thinking it was going to be a lot more complicated with that until I got the first prototype back from Jackson, and I'm like, wow, keep it simple. That's what this is, and that's exactly how the product ended up.
So let's go to Jackson and 3D printing, and you're getting into this as part of what? As part of high school, or actually before you even entered high school. Tell us your experience with the 3D printer and what you had been able to do up till that point, and how you were able to just picture the need that he was talking about, that Rory was talking about and describing, and saying, I think I can do this. I think I can figure this out.
Yeah, so I got a 3D printer, and at first I just printed like little random things, but then I realized that I can actually design stuff that's useful and put it to work. So my parents own a business, and I started creating things that help them in the everyday works of their business. And I think that just from making things that help their business out, I just started getting better and better at designing things. So when Rory sent me some pipes and parts, I just started making prototypes. And I went really complicated at first, but then I realized the easier it was, the better it worked.
And that's our look back at some of the highlights from 2025. As always, it's great to have you as part of our audience and part of the water treatment community. If you're not yet a member of WQA, go on over to wqa.org/membership and get signed up. Be a part of the growing water treatment community. And feel free to suggest a topic for 2026 and leave a comment at WQA@WQA.org. Happy holidays. And now our WQA tip. Did you know that you can book your hotel room for the upcoming WQA 2026 WQA Convention and Expo in Miami Beach? Now, registration will open at a later date, but hotel booking can be performed online now by going to WQA.org/convention. Convention dates April 28th through the 30th, 2026. Again, it's in Miami Beach, Florida. We look forward to seeing you there. Learn more at WQA.org/convention. Thanks for joining us for the Water Quality Association podcast. Learn more about water and water filtration at our consumer website, betterwatertoday.org, and learn more about professional certification, the Gold Seal Product Certification Program, and how you can become a member at WQA.org.